Mitten knit ornaments. Um, Welcome back to Michael's Community Classroom. If you haven't been in a class before, my name is Allie W. I'm from Yarn Inspirations, and I will be your moderator today. And of course, Marley Bird will be our wonderful host and instructor. And definitely excited for tonight's pattern. I think it's really cute. I know we have a lot to get through. So just a reminder, if you have any questions, pop them into the chat. We'll try and get to as many questions as we can throughout the class. And we'll try and get through this pattern as much as possible.
Yeah.
For those of you who still need the pattern link, I'll be dropping that in the chat right now.
Perfect. You just answered all the questions. You're like the woman with the mostest. Hey everybody, how are you doing? I don't know if you can see Allie. She was like, yay. Super happy to be here again in the Michael's Community Classroom. It is so much fun to teach these classes. I am an ambassador with Yarn Inspirations and a knitwear and crochet designer. I also have my own YouTube channel and my own podcast, and I have a yarn line with Red Heart. So I love doing all of this stuff. It's a good time. Knitting is one of my favorite things, and knitting with double pointed needles is literally my favorite thing. I think it's so much fun, and mainly it's because I look super cool when I do it. And it's all about looking cool, right? Because people who don't really know, they think that you actually are knitting with 5 or 4 different needles. And in reality, you're still just knitting with 2 needles at a time. So if you are unfamiliar with double pointed needles, if you've never used them before, I want you to promise me right now that you are going to give yourself a little bit of a break tonight and have some patience. Don't be afraid to give it a try. And even if you're just doing the cast on the whole night, remember this is getting recorded, so you can go back, rewatch, and try everything again. It just takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you get past really like the first couple rounds, it's pretty easy stuff. So as Allie said, we have a lot to get to, so I'm going to jump in if that's all right with all of you. Hopefully you can see my camera all right. I'm going to go down to my hands, Allie. Perfect. So let me move what I can over here. So this is the pattern we will be working on, and they're these cute little mitten knit ornaments. You guys can hear me okay, right? Like I moved my microphone over just to make sure. Good, thank you. So we're making these cute little knit ornaments. And so they really are knit just like regular old mittens. So if you've made mittens before, it's pretty darn easy. We're going to make them in the round using double pointed needles. Now the pattern calls for a set of 4 needles. Double points usually come in a set of 5 or 4. It depends on what needles you're getting. So I will go ahead and use 4 needles because that's what the pattern calls for. It also has listed here that you need 1 ball of Red Heart Super Saver in soft white, 1 ball in Jade, gold, or Flamingo. Obviously, that depends on how many you want to make. You can use any yarn you want. I'm not even using soft white. I'm using white. And then I think this is mint, like mint color. So that's what I am using. This pattern is already linked in the chat, I do believe, by Allie. So you can follow along with me in the pattern. I'm not going to worry too much about gauge or measurement. We're just going to cast on because it's an ornament. We don't have to actually have anybody wear these. So we're going to be pretty darn awesome. Okay. All right. So we're going to start off right here with our color A, and we're going to cast on 28 stitches, and we're going to use a cast on that I like to call the no cuss cast on. And that's just a funny word to say that we're going to use a long tail cast on, but we do it in such a way on our double points that our stitches are not going to fall off. Okay. I'm going to change it up, and instead of using white for the cast on, I'm going to use the color so that way you can actually see the stitches as I'm casting on. Because if I use white against the white here, you're not going to be able to see them very well. So I'm going to use the color, but for the pattern, you would use the actual white. All right. First thing you want to do is make sure you have a tail that will accommodate the number of stitches you're going to be casting on. And if you have never done a long tail cast on before and this is too difficult, you can use another cast on. This just happens to be my favorite cast on for double points. Place your slip knot in the point where you have a long enough tail to accommodate 28 stitches. And then we're going to place that slip knot directly onto our needle. Okay. So using the long tail cast on, we have the tail over our thumb, the working yarn over our finger, and we're going to essentially get in a slingshot position, and we're going to go up the thumb down the finger. You have this nice little window right here that you've created with your thumb. So you take your needle and you swing right through that window and let the yarn fall off your thumb. Pull the two legs apart and it tightens up that stitch. So that's one stitch. We're going to put 9 stitches on this needle. So you reposition to get in a slingshot. We're going to go up the thumb, down the finger, and then through that window and off the thumb. Reposition, up the thumb, down the finger, through the window, off the thumb. Now, as I mentioned, you do not have to use the long tail cast on, and you do not have to cast on the way I do as far as putting stitches on each needle along the way. You could put all of your stitches on one needle and then divide them out. That's a total option for you. I hate doing that because I drop stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to do 9. And this is the trick. This is the part that's the no cuss. You ready? So we have this nice little ridge right down here that we've created because of the long tail cast on. So a cast on in the round when you're using double points is essentially dividing up your stitches and having essentially like break points in where your stitches are. So I take my other needle, I rest it right up against that ridge, and then I extend that up ever so slightly. So this new needle is a little bit taller than that needle. My yarn is underneath my second needle. It's not over top of it or anything, okay? And then I reposition to get my long tail cast on going. And now I'll cast on using my new needle. And when I put the stitch right down here on my new needle, see how it's like super close to that stitch at the end of the first needle? That will help prevent any sort of a ladder or a like a run in your knitting. So then I'll have one stitch there, and I'm going to place 9 stitches on this needle as well. So I just continue on, just making sure my stitches are on my second needle, and then I'll grab the third needle and I'll do the same thing, only on that one I'll have 10 stitches. Okay. Everybody must be thinking really hard. Okay, so I'm poking that up and I'll do it one more time. So I have my third needle. It's resting right up against this ridge. Just extend it up ever so slightly. And I cast on to the third needle. And on this one, I want 10 stitches. All right. You with me? So obviously I left myself a nice long tail. I don't need it that long, so I'm going to go ahead and just cut it shorter. Otherwise I will accidentally knit with my tail, but I still left at least 4 to 6 inches for my tail. All right. So we have these lovely stitches right here. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I want this first stitch we cast on to come around and meet up with the last stitch we cast on. Okay. So this first stitch, we want to meet up with the last stitch. So what I want to do is I'm going to place this on the table and I'm going to hold this last needle that we used. I'm going to hold on to it. And these other 2 needles, I'm going to just swing them around just like so. So the needles went on top of the last one we used. So then I'm going to hold the second one that we used, and I'm going to swing the first one we used around just like so. So I've created a triangle. You all see that? So now I have put the 2 stitches I need to essentially connect to work in the round. They're now close up to one another, and I can begin working. You guys all see how that works?
Yep.
The
Hey,
beauty of
Marley,
this,
we do
yes.
have a question. So Seema wants to know about how long would you suggest making the tail?
So one thing you could do when it comes to the tail is if you want to wrap your tail or wrap your yarn around your needle the same number of times as you want to cast on, So you would wrap it 28 times and then give yourself just a little bit of extra room. And that's where I would put my slip knot. The other thing you could do is your stitches are, I mean, they're practically a circle. So the what is it? The circumference of a circle is 3.14 is pi. So if you have 3 times the width of whatever, or the circumference of what you're going to do. Anyways, if you did something where it was like 3 times and a little bit extra, you'd have enough there too. But it's up for 28 stitches. Just wrap your yarn around your needle about 28 times and give yourself a little extra room just for insurance sake. And then that works. Okay.
Awesome.
When you use the long tail cast on and the no cuss cast on method, and all that really means, guys, once again, I just want to be clear, it's that I cast onto the stitches all in, like I put 9 on one, 9 on one, and then 10 on one. So they're not just, I didn't put all 28 on one needle and then divide them out. The reason I don't do that is because honestly, I knit at church, and when I do that, I drop stitches, and God doesn't like it when you curse, which is why the thing is called the no cuss cast on, right? It's kind of like, these are the jokes, people. This is what you get, okay? So when you use the long tail cast on and you do it in this way, and you divide your stitches, like you arrange your needles, you can quickly see that your ridge on the inside, whether it's twisted or not at any place at the join. So you can automatically see that everything is in a nice circle right there. Even though it's in a triangle, it's in a circle, okay? So what we want to do now is, our ultimate goal here is to use, let me bring my yarn around so that I have it all set. I'm trying not to pick up my needle so I can easily show you how to do this. We want to use our yarn right here that's attached to the last stitch we cast on, and we want to use it to knit into the first stitch we cast on. So if I don't pick up my needles and I think about it like this, I'm going to use my 4th needle. I'm going to go into that first stitch I cast on. I'm going to go into it just like to knit. And then I'm going to grab my yarn that's attached over here to this last stitch I used, and I'm going to knit. So I knit it. That's it, y'all. That's all you have to do to join. You don't have to do any certain sort of special trick or anything. At this point, you see how close the stitch I just created is to the stitch that the yarn is coming off of? That right there, that's what you want. You want those joins to be nice and tight. And you do that by knitting the first one tight and the second one, okay? So what we're going to do with this particular pattern is we're going to knit one and then purl one. So once you knit one, bring your yarn between your needles to the front and you purl one. But I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret here, okay? So this is not written in the pattern, but I'm going to tell you anyways, because this is what I always tell everybody that I'm showing how to do double points. I will actually always knit the first round, even if I'm supposed to go into ribbing. I will knit the very first round of my double points because it helps secure the stitches in such a way that I'm not worrying about trying to purl anything, and it helps me keep the stitches nice and tight. Yes, it leaves just a little bit of a curl, just like ever so slightly at the bottom of my piece, but I think it's pretty, and it actually helps with maintaining control of your double points. So I'm going to go ahead and knit this first round before I go into my knit one, purl one. Okay, it will make things so much easier. It makes it so that the stitches have a little bit more fabric on them. And it's, especially if you're a beginner, this will really help you because you don't have to worry about transferring from a knit to a purl. I simply want you to knit the stitches. Notice I knit down this first needle, and then I'm going to rotate my work clockwise, right? I rotated it clockwise, like this went over here, this is coming up. I push this needle down. Again, my yarn is coming from over there. I'm knitting in the first stitch over here with this needle. So it's the same type motion. We're just going around to a different point in the pattern. Pop it off, make sure that's nice and snug. Make sure the next one is nice and snug. And just continue on knitting down that needle. If you don't want to do this, if you don't want to knit your first round, you absolutely don't have to. I'm just telling you from experience, I have found knitting this first round, especially for beginners, is so much easier for them to maintain control of the needles. Again, I got to the end of the needle, I rotated my work, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm knitting the first stitch on the next needle with the yarn coming from that last stitch on the previous needle, and I'll do this all the way to the end. And this is just an ornament. We don't have to stress about having it match another mitten, right? So we're okay. We're good. When you get to the end here, if your stitches right here at this particular join are a little bit loose, it's absolutely okay. The reason it's okay is, I mean, that's the very first join. It's okay if it's a little bit loose, and we can go back later, and when we weave in this tail, we can close up any sort of separation that happens there. But after this first round, it should really start to cinch up. Now, I've reached the end of my round. The way I know that is because I've reached where my tail is. So don't weave in your tail yet because it's handy. We know where the end of our round is because we've reached our tail. It's at this point, for me, I would now go ahead and jump into knit one, purl one ribbing. Okay, so I'm going to knit one stitch and then purl one stitch. And I am holding my yarn right now as if I'm continental knitting and purling. It's the exact same motion. I'm just holding my yarn in a different hand. If it's really too hard for you guys to tell what I'm doing, let me know. I can transfer to English. This is just my preferred method. And so I actually knit and purl better with double points holding it over here. So I can do the other if you need me to. Just let me know, okay? All right. So I finished with the knit. So this first stitch over here is going to be a purl. So I'm going to make sure I come to the front and I purl. All too often, I will make a mistake, guys, of always starting the first stitch of the new needle as a knit, and I'll forget that I had finished with a knit. And so always make sure that you start the first stitch on the next needle with whatever your stitch would be in sequence. We're just going to get something done here. It says we're going to work 4 rounds of this. Now, do we count our first knit round? We could. It's totally up to us, whatever we do. I mean, these are ours. We can decide whatever we want. Once you get through this knit one, purl one, the first round, the next round, you can just go as easy as knitting your knits and purling your purls. Again, I know I'm at the end of the round because I see the needle with the yarn attached, and I continue on. So I know I just finished 1 round. If you want to use a marker on your needle to indicate the end of the round, I suggest putting the marker like 1 stitch past the first, like either right there or right here, so it doesn't fall off your needle, obviously. That's my duh comment, guys, because I know some of you are like, really, Marley? That's what you're going to tell us? So I'm just going to knit and purl a couple rounds here. I'm going to let you guys do the same. While I'm doing this, I'm going to ask Allie if there are any questions. I'm actually not seeing anything pop up, so I don't know if I'm just missing them or if everybody's just working diligently together.
I think everybody is just stitching diligently.
All right.
But if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat.
I bet they're all afraid to drop their needles to type in a question.
Honestly, I would be very, very afraid.
It's funny. I see a couple people smiling. They're like, yeah, you caught me. That's exactly what's going on. They don't want to drop their needles. So I'm just rotating around. I don't know the last time I knit with only 3 needles in play, like with the 4th needle like this. I usually always use 4 needles in play. I find it easier, but that's okay. We have to start somewhere.
Maureen said that she missed the join. Is there any way that you can show that at this point?
So it's okay. So if this were the beginning right here, this is all it is. The beginning, there's nothing special. We're just going to start knitting. So it's as if this would have been our slip knot. So we would have went into that. The yarn is attached to this needle over here. So you just knit that stitch, and the yarn will be coming from the needle opposite. And then you just continue on with your pattern. Whether you jump right into your knit one, purl one, or you knit 1 round, that's totally up to you. I got to go back to my left hand. I'm terrible at, I have a really hard time purling with my right hand anyways, but then throw in double points and it's I look like I'm not very professional. So I just want to do this a couple times. I think I need 2 more
Brenda
rounds.
wants to know if instead of using double pointed needles, could you use circulars?
So if you have circulars that are small enough to accommodate this circumference, you could use small circulars. Or if you wanted to do what's called magic loop or use 2 circulars, you could absolutely do that. It's all a matter of preference. The hard part with that is unless you're an experienced knitter, this pattern isn't written for that. So you would kind of have to learn how to do that technique, which it isn't hard, and then just be able to read the pattern and adjust it as necessary for your needs. But yeah, you absolutely could do that. However, I will tell you, Brenda, this is what happened to me. Guys, my very first project I ever knit was a pair of socks on double pointed needles. Like, because when you don't know something's supposed to be hard and you just do it, right? You know what I mean? Like ignorance is bliss, right? So I remember learning, I had trouble, I had some ladders, and I was like, okay, well, that wasn't super bad, but I heard some people rumbling about Magic Loop. That was right when Kat Bordy had come out with Magic Loop. So I went to the yarn store and I said, I'm here to buy some long circular needles so I can do this thing called Magic Loop. And the yarn store owner wouldn't sell them to me. I'm not even lying, you guys. She told me, she goes, no, you need to get more practice with double points before you move on to something like that. And I was like, okay. I mean, when you're so new, you don't know any different, right? I was just like, okay, I'll do that. And so I went home and I didn't do Magic Loop then for like a couple years because I wasn't allowed to by the yarn shop owner. How ridiculous that sounds, but it's true. It's exactly what happened to me. But to this day, when I used to teach socks at my local yarn store, I would have a lot of people come in and they're just terrified of these double pointed needles. And you really shouldn't be. It's just, they're just sticks, guys. You can use them. There's no problem. And so people would say, oh, I want to learn how to make socks, but I don't want to learn them on double points. And I would tell them, here's my deal. You have to learn them on double points first so that you have tried it. And then I'll teach you how to use circulars. And then you can make a really educated decision on what's best for you. And so inevitably everybody was like, yeah, okay, that sounds great. And then they would try both. And then they would end up using double points for top down and circulars for toe up. And it just happened that way. Anyways, okay. So I have gone ahead. I did my knit one, purl one for 4 rounds. Now it says to switch to your second color and knit 4 rounds. So this is where it becomes very easy because at this point your stitches should be nice and snug. You have some fabric here. It's not too hard. And now we're just going to go and we're going to knit some. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to cut this. Again, I'm going to leave a nice long tail so I can weave in my ends. And I'm going to go ahead and switch to my white this time. You guys will have to tell me if you can't see, but I'm hoping it won't be that big of a deal because we're just knitting. You know what I mean? So it shouldn't be. Is that going to be okay? Is that going to be all right? You think?
Someone give us a thumbs up
Yeah.
if they agree, if they think it's okay.
If not, I can go grab some other yarn, but I grabbed white because it was called for white, but I'm not real sure. Trying to see what y'all think. And Linda says you're only using 2 sticks at a time. You're absolutely correct. And that's what I'm trying to tell people,
We've got a couple thumbs up. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. So to change colors, if you don't know how that works, you really just leave yourself a nice long tail with your new color and simply just start knitting with your new color. Now I'm going to tell you guys another secret. You ready? So I hate when I change to a new color and it flops around. So you're never supposed to put knots in your knitting, okay? But I'm going to tell you to put a knot in your knitting. But before you go to weaving your tail, you're going to let it out. So I'm just tying my white around my green and just pushing it up. And it's just going to hold it in place. But then before I would weave in my tail, I would undo that. Does that make sense, you guys? So it just keeps it in place is all it does. And I find it helpful. So anything that helps me is what I'm going to do. All right, so now we're just going to knit. So it's the same process. We're just going to knit. And we're going to knit 4 rounds before we start the thumb gusset. And the thumb gusset is where, if you were looking at the regular anatomy of a hand, it's where your hand starts to get a little bit bigger right there to fit your thumb. So it's like where we would be right here on the mitten, and the thumb gusset is this portion. All right. So let me knit like the wind bullseye, so that way we can get some thumb gusset stitches in here. Yeah, I think so. Sometimes I wonder if anybody out there tries to keep pace with me or get faster, like I'm faster than her. I know it happens quite a bit in my knit alongs. So they'll comment, haha, you're not as fast as you think, Marley Bird. I know, seriously. Or I do knit alongs and they're supposed to be like a project that we can finish in a weekend. And I always get the comments of, how fast do you knit? Because there's no way I could get this done in a weekend. I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's pretty regular. It's fun. My kids, when I was young, or when they were younger, we would go to the park or to a play place or anything like that, right? And I would usually knit socks like this. And so their friends would always be like, what is your mom doing? She has so many needles. And my kids would just look at them like, my mom's knitting. Doesn't your mom knit? I mean, doesn't every mom knit? Like, it was such a regular thing in their life. They were like, yeah, that's just knitting. Don't you know what that is? They learned early on too not to go rushing in at me, so that way they didn't get poked in the eye. Right? Because that would be really tragic.
Would be.
That would be really tragic. So when we get to the thumb gusset, the cool thing here, guys, is it's not like super complicated stitches. And I'm going to try and explain it in such a way that you get the concept of what you're doing. So you can kind of think of this pattern as a recipe more than a pattern, because you can kind of take the concepts of what I'm teaching you and apply it to a real deal size pattern. As a matter of fact, I just did a mitten stitch along with Yarnspirations. So there's lots of wonderful mitten and convertible mitten and fingerless mitten patterns out there for sure. And some wonderful yarns at Michael's you could buy to make them. I mean, sky is the limit. It is the limit. I'm curious how many of you out there are doing this like a handmade holiday season? How many of you are doing like handmade gifts this year? I know that in the Facebook group that I'm a part of, there's so many of them doing handmade gifts. So many. I know that right now we're focusing a lot on quickie gifts. It's like we're doing 24 days of quickies. So quick projects that people can make with just a couple days. So that way you can get through a lot of quick gifts. It's a lot of fun. All right, so I have hit my 4. This will be my 4th round. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, yep. We're gonna jump into the thumb gusset. All right, so it says thumb gusset. We're gonna knit 1 stitch and then knit front and back twice and then knit to the end of the round. So I'll knit 1 stitch. I'm actually gonna place a marker in there. It doesn't say this in the pattern, but I'm gonna place a marker there. I can grab one. Okay, I'm gonna grab a marker and just place it there. Now I'm gonna knit front and back. Now I wanna make sure you can see this. We're gonna knit into the front leg of this stitch, but then we are not gonna let it drop off. So I'm gonna go into the front leg and knit, come out, but I'm not letting that drop off yet. I'm gonna swivel my right hand needle around and go into the back leg of that same stitch and knit it again. So now I have 2 stitches on my right hand needle, and now I can let that stitch from my left hand needle jump off. I'm going to do that with the yarn on my opposite hand, so that way you guys can see it over there, because we have to do that twice. So I go into the stitch and I knit, come out, but I don't let that stitch jump off yet. I swivel my right hand needle around, go into the back leg of that same stitch, yarn over my needle and come out, so that I have 2 stitches, and now I let that stitch jump off my left hand needle. So I've just created 4 stitches. You guys see that? So I'm going to place another marker. You guys will see why. If I can grab it. I had so many markers. And now I'm just going to knit to the end of my round. I just carry on knitting. But those 2 stitches that I just worked an increase, because now I just increased 2 stitches, that's the start of my gusset, my thumb gusset. I like to use stitch markers, and I put them in place where I know that there's a place in the pattern I have to make an adjustment or do something interesting. So I like to have markers for sure. I'm at the end of my round here in just a second. And then round 2, I'm just going to knit. So I increased the first round. And the second round, I don't do anything. I'm just going to do 1 whole round without any increases. So when I get to my marker, I just slip it. And then I knit all 4 of those stitches. Slip my marker and then continue on around. Coming up to the end of the round here. And on this next round, we're going to increase. And so what happens here is we increase every other round in those stitches right after my first marker and right before my second marker. So without even having to look at my pattern, because I've placed those markers, I know that once I get to 10 stitches, I think it's 10 stitches between these markers, I'm going to be good to go. So I don't even have to really look at my pattern. So I know I knit 1, I slip my marker, I'm going to knit front and back. So there's my increase. Now I'm going to knit over to the stitch right before my next marker. See, I don't even really have to think, which makes it great for nighttime. You're just like, oh, all right. When you get to that stitch, you knit front and back, and then you slip it. And then you knit around to the end. So then the next round, we will just knit, because you do that increase every other round. So here we go. So this would be my round 4. No, I'm sorry. I'm still on round 3, but I will be going to round 4. Because that's how numbers work, if you were curious. That's how it goes. You go from 3 to 4. Maureen, how's it going over there, my friend? You looking at it? Looking good?
I got a message here. Do you have any tips or suggestions for tightening up? She said it's not that bad, but the triangle is kind of loose at each corner.
Okay.
If that makes
yes.
sense.
Yes. So what you have to remember is you are working in the round here, and you have these breaking points. Wherever one needle meets the other, you have a breaking point in your stitches. So as we transition from this stitch over to this stitch, we want to keep that join nice and snug. And we do that by knitting this first stitch and the second stitch nice and tight. It's like this first stitch needs to be tight. The second stitch is its partner. It's like sobriety partner, making sure it stays on the wagon, right? And we're keeping you nice and tight and making sure everything's really good. So when you come and you transition from one to the next, I always knit that first stitch, and I usually give like a wiggle and a tug to really tighten up that needle. Like I can let go and it keeps everything in place. And then it's the next stitch too, that's its partner, that really keeps it really nice and snug. And now I just knit to the end. Like I don't have to worry about anything else if I can keep those first stitches nice and snug. Okay, it's always the first 2 stitches. And that's really the biggest trick, is just making sure those first 2 stitches are nice and snug. Okay. This is one of those things, you guys, you just kind of have to cast on and practice some stitches and kind of get used to holding the needles this way and letting the stitches just rest on the other needles. It's a little bit of muscle memory. You'll find a way to like hold your needles, how to transfer from one needle to the next, how to hold your yarn that's comfortable. And it's different for everybody, but you'll be just fine. All right, so I'm at the end of my round. I know I'm at another increase here. So I would knit 1, slip my marker, knit front and back. So it's the first stitch after my marker. And now I just knit over to the stitch before my next marker. See where the markers are super helpful? And everybody says, yes, Marley. So smart, Marley. That's why they pay you so much, Marley. So that you tell us those secrets. All right. I gotta get over here real quick. Get to the end of my round. So I'm curious how many of you are just mesmerized by my knitting, because that usually tends to happen too. People just sit back and kind of watch and enjoy.
I know I am.
Are you? It happens. My kids used to do that too. They would sit back and just watch my knitting. I love it. All right, so I'm coming up to the end of this. So that last round was my increase. And then now I'm just going to knit. So I'm just going to knit this one. Whoop. Everybody take a drink. Drop the needle. Slip my marker. If you ever are lost whether you increased or not, here's a little trick. When you do the knit front and back, I don't know if you can tell, but the second stitch looks like it has a purl bump. So if you're coming to your stitches, you're like, oh, did I increase last time or not? If that second stitch looks like it has a purl bump, then you know that last time you did an increase. So this time you are not doing an increase. That's a good little tip, right? Huh? Same here. So see here, we increased last time. So there's like a little purl bump right there in that second stitch. All right, so let's knit around. Has anybody been able to pick up on my rhythm for the needles? Like, watch. So I get to the end and I do the same thing every time. I get done with this needle. I tuck it like this. I tuck this over top. I push this to the center and I rotate. And it's so automatic anymore, I don't even think about it. Like I just do it. I like the sound of the needles clicking. You guys watched me, didn't you? You were like, is she gonna do it? All right, so I'm on an increase. I'm pretty sure this is my row 7. So I'm slipping one, knit front and back. I should be knitting 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is perfect. It's one stitch before my marker. So I knit front and back. Slip my marker and carry on. And like I said, you're just getting to where you have enough stitches between those markers to accommodate a thumb. So obviously this is an ornament. It really doesn't matter. Like if we wanted to stop here, we could, because really like who's this going to be for? But the pattern wants us to go. And on the next round is when we're going to slip stitches. So we are actually stopping here. Perfect. Right? Or is that, yeah, that was perfect. So I'm going to get to the end of the round here. And the next round, instead of just knitting, we're going to move those stitches to a holder. And when I say holder, I mean a string of yarn. All right. So the pattern here says we're going to knit 1. Then it says slip the next 10 stitches onto a holder for the thumb. And then we'll cast on 2 stitches. Here's so that you know what's going on. Those 2 stitches you're casting on are the 2 stitches we originated with to begin these increases. Okay, so that way we'll get back to our original stitch count. So what you can do is take your opposite color, whatever you used, and thread it onto a tapestry needle. I recommend doing this. I would not use stitch holders. I recommend using string because it just makes it so that the stitches are pliable and it won't stretch out your work. So we have to knit 1. I will remove my marker. I'm going to slip the next 10 stitches onto this string. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. remove my marker, and then I'm going to cast on 2 stitches. So I'm just going to do a backwards E cast on. I'm not going to do anything special. So here's what we do. Can you see what I just did there? So here's my thumb. Here's the yarn. I'm just going to scoop it around just like that. Ready? So I'm going around, scooping up. Take my needle, go to the base of my thumb, and scoop that on. It's called a backwards E. Right there. And scoop that on. The only reason I'm choosing to do that here is because it's only a couple stitches. I never cast on with that stitch because it's very, very pliable and stretches out, and I just don't like it. But here, so we have those 2 stitches cast on, which represent the 2 stitches we started with. I can remove my slip or my whatever it's called. And then I just carry on. So I'm going to go ahead and knit over here. I do want to make sure I bring that stitch really nice and close to the 2 stitches I cast on. And I'm going to knit to the end of the round. And I'm back to my original 28 stitches. And I have stitches just hanging out here for what would be a thumb. You guys see? Or you can look at it this way. It's like the anatomy of a hand. See that? Yes, everybody see that? Perfect. All right. So I'm coming up to the end of my round, and it says that I would continue in stockinette until my work measures 3.5 inches from the beginning. So I'm guessing the beginning would be my cast on row. So this is, I guess, where I would have to pause and measure just to kind of see how much more I have to do. How am I doing on time? I think I'm good.
You have 17 minutes.
All right, I'm good. So what did I say? 3.5 inches? So I've only got like maybe 3 or 4 rows. So I'm just going to do 3 or 4 rows or rounds. And then we'll jump into the shaping. So let's go. Let's chat with one another. How many of you did some shopping at Michael's over the Black Friday? I know I went and bought a Cricut, and I got some more yarn because honestly, the Karen cakes just call to me. So I went there and got some more. So I'm curious, how many of you went shopping over Black Friday or Thanksgiving weekend or all that good stuff? While I'm sitting here knitting, so that way we have something to talk about.
Colette says she is stopping at Michael's tomorrow. I know I have it on my list. I need to buy some ribbon because this is not my real tree. My tree does not exist yet.
That's awesome. I bought a Cricut and I don't even know how to use a Cricut. But it was a great deal and it was pink. And so I was like, sold.
Cameron got a Cricut too.
Oh, yay. That's awesome. I'm so excited. I bought the Cricut and I bought the Cricut press. I don't know how to use either one. My daughter was stupid excited. Like she was like, this is the best thing ever, Mom. So then I started looking at all of the other stuff that comes with the Cricut and I'm like, I don't even know where to start. Like I have no idea. So I figured, okay, well, I have the big tools. So maybe I will get the next stuff after I watch a couple videos and see what I can do with it. But my daughter is telling me she wants to make stickers and stuff that say Marley made me do it. And so I was like, okay, sweetheart. But yeah. And then I bought yarn. I bought some of the really pretty new colors of the Karen cakes because I mean, they're so pretty. And the Karen swirls, the browns and the blacks and the whites, like they're just gorgeous. I love it. Awesome. This is so fun. I mean, I'm sure I can find some lessons for how to use a Cricut on Michael's. I mean, I'm fairly certain that there's something there for me. Fairly certain there's something there. Awesome. So everybody did have a good time. That's awesome. All right, so I'm coming up to the end here. We're going to call this 3.5, and we're going to move on to the shaping of the top, which is pretty darn simple here. We're going to learn some decreases. So we learned a fun increase of the knit front and back. Now we're going to learn some decreases. So we start off here at the start. And if you're looking at the pattern, you'll notice, let me just bring it over here. You see here where it has a parenthesis? This is the deal. Anything that's inside of those parentheses, you're going to do the number of times written outside of the parentheses. Okay. So we're going to do all of this twice. So for those of you who don't know how to read a pattern, now you know that's how that works. All right. So we are going to knit one. We're going to do our first decrease, which is an SSK. So you slip, you go into the stitch as if to knit and you slip it off. You go into the next stitch as if to knit and you slip it off. Take your left hand needle and you're going to put it into the front leg of those two stitches. And then you knit them together. That decrease leans to the left. Can you see how it leaves that line to the left? All right. So once we've done that, then we're going to knit 8. So let's get 8. 7 and 8. Now we're going to knit 2 together. So these 2 stitches here, we're going to go into the second one first and go right in through the second one and the first one as if we're going to knit, and we knit them together. And that decrease leans to the right. See how it leaves that line to the right? This is actually called full fashion decreasing, where you do the decreases so that they lean the direction you want the shape of the piece to go. So after you do that knit 2 together, you knit 1. So that was 1 repeat. We have to do it again. So we knit 1. We do an SSK. So we slip as if to knit, slip as if to knit, take our left hand needle, put it in the front leg of those 2 stitches and knit them together. Then we'll knit 8. Then we'll knit 2 together. So we go to the second stitch, stick your needle in the second one and the first one, yarn over your needle and pull through both of them. That's a knit 2 together. See how it leans to the left? You finish with a knit 1. So now I just decreased 2 stitches. Okay. So on the next round, we're just going to knit. So just like when we worked increase rounds, we're going to separate our decrease rounds with just that knit round. All right, guys. So I'm going to keep going here and get all the way around. I have the cutest little ornaments after taking these classes or teaching these classes. All right, so I'm at the end of my round. And everybody now, why do I know I'm at the end of my round? Because of my tails. They're all right there. They're just like, look at me, I'm over here. Okay, so we're on round 3. We're gonna do this decrease again. So we knit 1. This first one is an SSK. Slip as if to knit, slip as if to knit. Stick your needle into the front leg of those 2 stitches and then knit just like normal. Then I will knit 6. Knit 2 together. Did I knit 6? I feel like I counted wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. And then knit 2 together and then knit 1 and do that all again. So knit 1, work an SSK. Knit 6. Do a knit 2 together and then knit 1. And I have to knit. So I just decreased 2 stitches. This is going to go really fast because I have fewer stitches. I say that and I'm jinxing myself. 10 minutes. You guys think we can get this done?
I think we'll be close.
I think we'll be close. I'm trying.
It is just about the most adorable little baby mitten I've ever seen.
Right? I know. I got to be able to show them how to do the thumb, how to pick up stitches for the thumb. I got to get around there. So this is another decrease round. So we're going to knit one. We're going to do our SSK. I'm going to cruise here, y'all. I'm going to try and get through. I'm on a mission. So there's my knit 4. Here's my knit 2 together. Here's my knit 1, then here's my knit 1. Now, my SSK, there's one over here and there's one on the next needle. So I slip this one, and this is where it gets a little tricky. So you have to kind of pull this in and then slip that one. And then you use this needle to do your SSK. Make sense? Knit 1 and then 1, 2, 3. Did I do that right? Why am I coming up through? Oh yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Duh. Knit 2 together and knit 1. Now just a knit. So they have you grafting these together. Do you know that? I mean, do you know that? Why did I say, do you know that? I'm so sorry. They have you grafting these together, which is not difficult.
LJ said the picture is really cute, but she didn't realize till she looked at the pattern that it's actually a whole mitten.
Yeah.
Which is a good point.
Yep.
I knew just because I had seen them, but
they look like they could be just one side. But yeah, this is a full-blown mitten. Like these could be for babies. Like it's a full-blown mitten for sure. And then, so that was my SSK. I think this one's my knit 2 together. This gets tricky on the different needles with the decreases, you know? Put that over there. Oops, I turned it. Is this my SSK decrease? Looks like it. I might have done an SSK on the last one. I was supposed to do a knit 2 together, but regardless, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it matters, but I'm not going to go back and undo it at this point. How about that? I just want to make sure we get through this. Okay, so I'm supposed to knit one more round. No, this round is where 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep, I need to go. This would be 6. I think I messed up right there. Maybe not. Yeah, right there. I did an SSK instead of knit 2 together, but I'm not going to fix it right now because we're on a mission. So I would normally fix it. I must have been thinking about something else. So I would do another decrease. How many stitches do I have here now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I have 12 stitches. What I would do is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to transfer one stitch. You want to make them to where your stitches are like this so that the mitten is flat. You see what I mean? Like a flat mitten. And you want to put the stitches. So I need one of these off of here and put it over here. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I need one more over there. And then I can put this last one there on this needle actually. So I get them on 2 needles. And then here's where you would graft them together. I'm going to quickly try and show you how to do this. I'm not going to graft the whole thing so that I can show you how to do the what is that called? The thumb. So if you're going to graft, you go into the front as if to knit. Is that right? No, that wasn't right. It's the purl. So you go in as if to purl, and you're going to take that one off, go in as if to knit and leave that one on. Go in as if to knit, take that off, go in as to purl, leave that on. Pretty sure I'm doing this right. I'm not mixing them up. But you go on, and that's if you want to do the Kitchener stitch. But the other thing you could do, you guys, is instead of, I mean, they're just an ornament. I'm telling you all the different ways just to go around this. I'm undoing this. So if you wanted to just thread your needle through all the live stitches and then pull it closed like a drawstring, you could totally do that, because it's the top of an ornament. Really? I mean, are we going to take the time to do Kitchener stitch? I mean, I guess you could, but I don't have time for that. So we're going to do this. Pull it together. You saw me, I just thread them through, just pull it closed. I mean, that looks equally nice, right? For a top of a mitten, are you kidding me? That looks great. And then you just weave in your tail to the inside. See that? Okay. So then the thumb, we're cruising here, guys. So the thumb over here, it says with color 2, knit 10 stitches from the holder. So we have 10 stitches here. So it wants us to knit the 10 stitches. So the first thing I would do is I would place stitches on needles. So I would do 5 on one and 5 on the other. And I'm not going to remove my holder yet, my string. I'm going to leave it in there just in case something messes up. I'm going to use it like it's a lifeline now. So I'm supposed to grab white. I'm supposed to knit. So I'm just going to hold my white over here. I'm just going to knit these stitches. And then I come over here. So it's just like I'm working in the round so far. I'm going to pause there for a second. I'm going to grab one more needle. I'm going to knit this one. And then I have to pick up and knit 2 stitches right here where we did the cast on. So all I'm going to do, you guys, is I'm going to go in to like one of those stitches right there. I actually like to kind of go in through like 2 legs essentially. And I just yarn over and pull that yarn over up. So that's a pick up and knit. So then I'll do the next one. Pick up and knit. So now I have 2 more stitches. So I have 12 stitches, and then I work in the round. So that it says divide the stitches evenly, but we're going to keep them just like this. So we join to work in the round just like this, and then we just knit 5 rounds. And then it says knit 2 together, all the stitches, and then bind off. So I'm just going to keep knitting. I know we have like 1 minute left. Are there any questions, Allie?
Let me take a look.
All right. I mean,
does anyone have any questions about finishing off the mitten that we can cover?
Yeah. So the last thing you would do, you guys, is use your tails to close up any holes you might have gotten like at the join right here or whatever. Just use your tails to do that. And then obviously you can then do all the embroidery work afterwards. But this is how you make a mitten, you guys. This is it in an hour with a lot of talking. Right? I feel like I've talked the whole time. Hopefully it was entertaining. Can you finish the same way? Yes. Can you finish the thumb the same way you did the full mitten? Absolutely. Actually, that's what I would do. I wouldn't graph the thumb. I would pull it together like a drawstring. I mean, if this were a real mitten, like a mitten I was going to wear, I would absolutely graph the thumb, because the way the shaping is done, it actually looks really great. But because this is just this is just an ornament. I mean, why go to all that trouble? Unless you want to practice the Kitchener stitch, you're more than welcome to. But anyways, that's just my 2 cents. So.
And just a reminder to everybody, the recording of today's class will be available on michaels.com/classes. And we also have a ton of other really fun knit and crochet projects through the rest of December. So be sure to check back on michaels.com/online classes for even more classes and more cute holiday projects.
Yeah, come join me again. I'm on my last round if you guys want to hold on. You don't have to, but I
Marley
feel like
is going to show us that you can absolutely finish a little baby sized. I really want, if I had the energy to, I could make these for my puppy dog and just absolutely torture him.
You absolutely could. All right, so I gotta come over here because this is on this needle. I'm like nervous. I'm like shaking. I don't know if you guys can tell. Like I'm like, okay, I gotta do this so that I don't leave the knitters hanging. I'm seriously like, oh my gosh. All right, so once you do your knit 2 togethers all the way around, obviously we're down to 6 stitches, so it's the same thing. You can just cut your yarn and thread it through. Tapestry needle. You can get these at Michael's. It's a bent tip tapestry needle. I love the metal ones. They're my favorite. Always start with the stitch that would have been your next one. You can go in as if to purl or as if to knit. I'll give you a little tip. If you go in as if to knit, it's like the perfect little puckery little pull together piece. It looks really good. So I tend to usually go in as if to knit. So it's like you go in as if to knit and come off just like that onto each stitch. So when you pull it together, it has this really beautiful sort of like pucker of the drawstring. Let me show you. Can you see? I don't know if you can tell. It's right there. It's like the perfect pucker. So like you could thread this through a couple times and then just pop it right down and weave in your tail.
Oh,
right?
It is so cute.
I know. So then you just weave in your ends. There you go. Woo!
Oh,
Gosh. Boom.
So adorable. Y'all.
And that's how it's done, ladies and gentlemen.
If you all finish your mitten in an hour, send Marley a message.
Please tag me on social media. #MarleyBird. Look at that.
Oh,
I am proud of it. So only thing we didn't end up doing was the hanging loop. And you could just crochet. You know what? Go to Michael's and buy yourself one of the really cool metal hanging things. And then you don't have to, you can be like, you really did finish it. Just hang it up. Just like that. Everybody's saying, yeah, it's really cute. Obviously I have all my tails to weave in, but that's it, you guys.
it's adorable.
Isn't it cute?
Oh,
and it's a real mitten. Like I can't get over it. It's a real mitten. Jeez Louise.
Oh, so cute.
Love it. Hope you guys found the stitch markers helpful. Like I think that's like super helpful.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks for sticking around with me just a little bit.
Thank you so much, Marley. And today was
You're
so
welcome.
much fun.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks everyone so much. We'll see you again soon.